Welcome back to another video as we discuss modern day slavery. Now, I'm guessing you're back here because you already care about this issue. But the million-dollar question, how do we get others to care about this issue? If this issue is so big and it's going to require everyone to take action, millions of people around the world, how do we get them to care? Especially if it's an issue that often doesn't feel like it affects us directly. So I'm here again with Tearfund's Education Specialist, Dale Campbell. Welcome.
Welcome.
So, million-dollar question, how do we get others to care when it doesn't feel like it affects them directly?
Thanks, Ido. I think we have to start by just acknowledging the powerful factors that are at work to get us to not think about modern slavery.
And I think that's exactly what I mean. It feels like, we're down here a little on New Zealand. It feels like such a distant issue, way off in some of those developing countries. And it's not really our problem to care about or address. I hate to say it, but we're extremely good at not caring about issues that don't kind of stare us in the face, right?
Yeah, it's such a common attitude that sociologists have actually given it a name called psychological distance.
Psychological distance.
That's right. As humans, we're really bad at caring about things that don't affect us directly. So if something doesn't affect me right now, but it affects me maybe later, then I struggle to care. And if it doesn't affect me right here, but it affects people somewhere else, then I struggle to care as well.
And this is often the attitude that I see playing out when I'm talking to people, that we're not the people to respond or it's not our problem right now, right? This isn't our thing to be dealing with right now. So they're not quite the right person to care about this issue or to take action. You know what I mean?
Totally.
And I guess the other challenge is that, the reality is that modern slavery often makes our lives kind of more convenient, in some way. So it's, like that super cheap piece of clothing or that nice chocolate bar or whatever it might be. And, if we don't have to think about the fact that it was slavery that allowed us to enjoy that thing, then we don't have to feel guilty.
That's right. And believe it or not, there's another term that has been given to that problem as well.
You're full of terms today.
They call it solution aversion. Because as you say, it's easier. My life is easier and cheaper if I don't have to think about this stuff. It sounds ridiculous, but people's lives hang in the balance.
So both of those are pretty powerful motivations not to think about modern slavery, right? Let alone try and end it. So what do we do? How do we combat that?
I think for me, the most helpful way to help anyone understand anything is to try to lift our vision above the immediate small world of comfort and convenience. So in the household of faith, as Christians, we have these amazing values that guide us, and part of helping one another understand the importance of addressing slavery will involve reminding ourselves of these values that we hold in common, and of course aligning our lives to those.
Can you give us a few practical pointers to be mindful of when thinking about this?
Sure. As a first step, we can remind ourselves and others that through our faith we already ascribe to a value system that means we should care about the exploitation of people. We have this conviction that God created each and every one of us in His own image and designed us to flourish in relationship to God and to one another, and of course to ourselves and the whole creation as well, and not to be exploited for the benefit of others. So Christian values are not only against human slavery, these values are also for human flourishing. We don't just want people to not be enslaved, we want people to thrive.
As good as it is, talking about modern slavery, was good, but it's not quite enough just to talk about it. Faith without deeds. And so, what would you say are some things we can actually do? How can the rubber hit the road?
You're bang on. We have to practice what we preach. What good is having all these great values if we don't live them out, right? So for example, if we're trying to convince our friends about ethically consuming, then we have to be doing that ourselves. And I think we can find that it's actually quite fulfilling to do this. So it's actually in our own best interests as well.
I found that for me, it was really kind of easy to get fired up about this cause, and then you kind of, talk to everyone about it, and then your results are quite slow, right? And it's a big issue. So it takes a lot of time, and it's easy to kind of get almost burnt out or a little bit disillusioned, right? And then on top of that, for me anyway, you get awoken to this one injustice, and then suddenly there are these other things that you discover,
right.
And you realize, man, there are so many issues in the world. It's so broken out there, and it can almost be a little bit burdensome or overwhelming, right? As someone that's spent a bit of time with this issue, what's your suggestion for dealing with that?
Cool. So theologically, there's this wonderful concept about the kingdom of God is always partially realized in our life, not fully until the end of the age. There's this sense that we see it, but it is fully realized at the end of the age, at the return of Christ. And that's a wonderful future to work forward to. So they say the kingdom is present already, but not yet fully.
So there's this healthy tension of kind of being set in motion, right? It's moving and it's yet to be fully realized.
Absolutely. It's patient persistence. And my favorite biblical example of this, I love that Jesus heroes the persistent widow in Luke 18, right? Luke 18, verse 1 to 8, tells the story about this woman who persistently and patiently goes to this unjust ruler and eventually wears him down. And the biblical view is that this God of justice is with us in the struggle. We're not just working towards a future that is uncertain. I love the way that 2 Peter chapter 3 puts it. This future that we're working toward is described as a new heaven and a new earth where justice dwells. So that's the future that we're working for. We're not just making it up and hoping that something good will happen. We're actually going somewhere.
And I remember someone describing it to me like this one time when I was a little bit disappointed with the numbers of, how many perpetrators have been in court and how many, survivors had been freed. It was like 60 in this one year. And I'm like, is that it? There's literally millions of, 40 million slaves and only 60. And then they challenged me in my thinking and they said, well, sure, but to that one,
yes,
their whole world has changed, right? So to those 60, their whole world has changed. Justice now dwells there, and they've been given a second chance at life. And I just always remembered that sure, when we just look at the numbers and sit back, man, it feels overwhelming. But when we come back to the humanity at the core of it, the individuals, the fathers, sons, daughters, mothers, that are now free and now have a second chance at life, essentially, it's like, one is enough, right?
Totally.
Although it's not, but one is enough to keep going, right? To keep us going forward.
That's right, the one-many tension. And another camera angle on that would be to say that, we're not just working our alone. We believe in partnership. And so our efforts are pitched in and joined and linked in with a whole network of a global church that is fighting and resisting and trying to address modern slavery.
And luckily we have our faith that compels us forward, that essentially offers us and provides us the bread and water to keep going, to offer us sustenance to fight the good fight and run the race, right? So this is awesome, man. What a great way to end it. I hope you enjoyed that. Thank you for joining us again. Thank you, Dale, for sharing some insight. And good luck with your conversations with those around you. Don't be shy. It's something that is worth talking about and something that is worth risking and taking the step of faith and, bringing it up in conversation and sharing what you've learned.